You think success will make you happy. You believe that achieving your goals will finally give you the satisfaction, the peace, the sense of completion you've been searching for. But here's what no one tells you about the psychology of success. The human mind doesn't work the way you think it does. The relationship between achievement and fulfillment is far more complex, counterintuitive, and psychologically fascinating than any motivational speaker will admit. Most people spend their entire lives chasing a psychological illusion. They believe that success is a destination, a place you arrive at where you finally feel enough. But decades of psychological research reveal a disturbing truth. The very mechanisms that drive us towards success are often the same mechanisms that prevent us from enjoying it. This isn't a story about failure. This is about what happens in the mind when you get everything you thought you wanted and discover that the psychology of achievement works nothing like you expected. Why do so many successful people struggle with depression, anxiety, and emptiness? Why does reaching your goals often feel less satisfying than pursuing them? And what does the latest research in psychology and neuroscience tell us about the real relationship between success and human well-being? The answers will fundamentally change how you think about achievement, ambition, and what it actually means to live a successful life.
I'm going to tell you something. Your life is your own. You have a contract with your wife. You have certain things you do jointly. You have a bond there. And there are other things. And those things are yours. And you needn't feel ashamed. You needn't feel that you're being untrue or that she would abandon you if she knew. This is your life.
The achievement paradox. The first thing you need to understand about success psychology is what researchers call the hedonic treadmill. This psychological phenomenon explains why lottery winners return to baseline happiness levels within months of their windfall, and why people who achieve major career milestones often feel less satisfied than they expected. Your brain is not designed to sustain feelings of accomplishment. From an evolutionary perspective, contentment was dangerous. Our ancestors who felt satisfied and stopped striving were more likely to be outcompeted for resources. So natural selection favored minds that quickly adapted to positive changes and returned to seeking mode. This means that no matter what you achieve, your brain will normalize it and start looking for the next thing. The promotion you worked years to get becomes routine within weeks. The house you saved for becomes ordinary. The relationship you fought to build becomes familiar. This isn't a character flaw, it's how human psychology functions. But the hedonic treadmill only explains part of the story. Modern psychology has identified several other mechanisms that make the pursuit of success psychologically complicated. The first is what researchers call affective forecasting error. We are remarkably bad at predicting how achieving our goals will actually make us feel. Studies consistently show that people overestimate both the intensity and duration of positive emotions they'll experience from future successes. You imagine that getting promoted will make you feel proud and satisfied for months. In reality, you might feel good for a few days before the feeling fades and your mind moves on to other concerns. This isn't because you're ungrateful or because the achievement wasn't meaningful. It's because your emotional system is designed to return to baseline quickly. The second mechanism is social comparison theory. Your sense of success isn't determined by absolute achievement, but by how your achievements compare to those around you. This creates a psychological trap. As you become more successful, you tend to associate with other successful people, which raises your comparison standards and can actually make you feel less successful despite objective gains. A surgeon who makes $300,000 annually might feel unsuccessful if all her colleagues make $500,000. A startup founder who sells his company for $10 million might feel like a failure if his college roommate sold theirs for $50 million. The psychology of relative success often matters more than absolute success. The third mechanism is what psychologists call the arrival fallacy. The belief that reaching a specific goal will fundamentally change how you feel about yourself and your life. This fallacy is so pervasive that most people structure their entire approach to happiness around it. When I get that job, then I'll feel confident. When I lose this weight, then I'll be happy with my body. When I find the right relationship, then I'll feel complete. But research in positive psychology shows that achieving external goals rarely produces lasting changes in self-perception or life satisfaction. The person you are after achieving your goal is essentially the same person you were before, just with different circumstances. These psychological realities create what researchers call the success trap, a cycle where people achieve their goals, feel briefly satisfied, then quickly adapt and set new goals to recapture that feeling. This can lead to a lifetime of constant striving without ever experiencing sustained satisfaction. But the psychology gets even more complex when we examine what happens to identity during the pursuit of success. The identity crisis of achievement. One of the most overlooked aspects of success psychology is how achievement affects your sense of self. When you spend years working toward a goal, the pursuit often becomes central to your identity. You're not just someone who wants to be a lawyer, you become someone who's going to law school. You're not just hoping to start a business, you become an entrepreneur. This identity fusion serves an important psychological function during the pursuit phase. It provides motivation, helps you make decisions aligned with your goals, and creates a sense of purpose. But it also sets up a psychological challenge. What happens to your identity when you achieve the goal? Psychologists call this goal gradient effect. The closer you get to achieving something, the more motivated you become. But there's a dark side to this effect. When your identity is built around pursuing something, actually achieving it can create an existential crisis. Consider the psychology of athletes who train their entire lives for the Olympics. Many report feeling profoundly lost after competing, regardless of whether they win or lose. Their sense of self was so intertwined with preparing for the Olympics that actually doing it, the thing they worked toward for decades, leaves them with an identity vacuum. This phenomenon extends far beyond athletic achievement. Professionals who finally make partner at law firms, entrepreneurs who successfully exit their companies, students who graduate from prestigious programs, many experience what psychologists call post-achievement depression. The symptoms are remarkably consistent: a sense of emptiness, questions about what comes next, feeling like nothing will ever be as meaningful as the pursuit that just ended, and sometimes a deep sadness that the thing you worked so hard for is now just a memory. This isn't a sign of weakness or ingratitude. It's a natural psychological response to achieving something that had become central to your sense of self. Your brain literally needs time to reorganize your identity around new sources of meaning and purpose. But there's another layer to the identity psychology of success that's even more complex: the fear of who you might become. Many people unconsciously sabotage their own success because they're afraid of how achievement might change them. They've seen successful people who seem disconnected from their values, who've become arrogant or out of touch, who've lost relationships or perspective. So part of their psyche resists success as a form of self-protection. This creates internal psychological conflict. Part of you wants to achieve your goals, but another part fears the person you might become if you do. This conflict often manifests as procrastination, self-doubt, or unconscious self-sabotage, right when you're on the verge of breakthrough. Understanding this dynamic is crucial because it explains why so many capable people seem to get in their own way just when success is within reach. It's not that they don't want to succeed. It's that they haven't resolved the psychological tension between wanting achievement and fearing its potential impact on their identity. The solution isn't to abandon ambitious goals. It's to develop what psychologists call psychological flexibility. The ability to hold multiple identities simultaneously and to adapt your sense of self as circumstances change. This means building an identity that's broader than any single goal or achievement. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who's trying to get promoted, you might see yourself as someone who values growth and contribution. Instead of defining yourself as an aspiring entrepreneur, you might identify as someone who creates value and solves problems. This broader identity framework allows you to pursue ambitious goals without losing yourself in them, and to achieve success without experiencing an identity crisis when the pursuit ends. The neuroscience of satisfaction. Recent advances in neuroscience have revealed fascinating insights about what actually happens in your brain when you pursue and achieve goals. Understanding these mechanisms can help explain why the psychology of success often feels so counterintuitive. The primary neurotransmitter associated with motivation and reward seeking is dopamine, but contrary to popular belief, dopamine isn't the pleasure chemical. Instead, it's the wanting chemical. Dopamine levels spike highest, not when you achieve something, but when you anticipate achieving it. This explains why the pursuit of goals often feels more exciting than actually reaching them. Your brain releases the most dopamine during the anticipation phase, when you're imagining how great it will feel to succeed, when you're making progress toward your goal, when success feels possible but not yet certain. When you actually achieve the goal, dopamine levels drop. This isn't because the achievement isn't meaningful, but because your brain's reward system is designed to motivate seeking behavior, not to sustain satisfaction with what you already have. This neurochemical reality has profound implications for how you experience success. The most neurologically rewarding part of any achievement is often the journey, not the destination. This is why many successful people report missing the struggle once they've made it. But dopamine is only part of the story. other neurotransmitters play crucial roles in how you experience success and satisfaction. Serotonin is associated with feelings of pride, confidence, and social status. Unlike dopamine, serotonin levels can be sustained when you achieve recognition from others or when you feel your accomplishments are valued by people you respect. This explains why some types of success feel more satisfying than others. Those that involve social recognition or contribute to your sense of status tend to provide more lasting psychological rewards. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, is released when achievements strengthen relationships or contribute to group success. This is why collaborative victories often feel more satisfying than individual ones, and why achievements that isolate you from others can feel hollow despite their objective significance. Endorphins provide feelings of well-being and can be released through both the process of working toward goals and the achievement of them. However, endorphin release is often strongest during challenging but manageable difficulties, what psychologists call optimal challenge. This explains why easy victories feel less satisfying than hard-won successes. The interplay of these neurochemical systems reveals why some approaches to success are more psychologically sustainable than others. Goals that involve sustained challenge, social connection, and regular progress markers tend to provide better neurochemical rewards than goals focused purely on end results. This research also explains why certain psychological frameworks for success are more effective than others. Process-oriented goals, I want to write for 30 minutes daily, tend to provide more consistent neurochemical rewards than outcome-oriented goals. I want to publish a best-selling novel, because they create regular opportunities for dopamine release through progress and achievement. Understanding the neuroscience also helps explain why some people seem more naturally satisfied with their achievements than others. Individual differences in neurotransmitter sensitivity, baseline levels, and reward processing can significantly impact how you experience success psychologically. But neuroscience reveals another crucial insight. Your brain's reward systems are highly adaptable. The same achievement can feel completely different depending on your psychological context, your relationships, your values, and your understanding of what you're working toward. This plasticity means that learning to experience success more satisfyingly isn't just about achieving different things. It's about changing how your brain processes achievement itself. The comparison trap. One of the most psychologically destructive aspects of modern success culture is the constant availability of comparison opportunities. Social media, professional networks, and cultural messaging create an environment where you're constantly measuring your achievements against others. Social comparison theory explains why this is so psychologically challenging. Humans evolved in small groups where you could easily assess your relative status and capabilities. Your brain is designed to make these comparisons as a way of understanding where you fit in the social hierarchy and what resources might be available to you. But modern technology has broken this system. You're now comparing yourself not just to the 50 to 150 people in your immediate community, but potentially to millions of people worldwide. Your brain doesn't distinguish between local and global comparisons. It processes all comparative information as if it's relevant to your immediate survival and status. This creates several psychological problems. First, you're always seeing outliers. Social media algorithms prioritize exceptional content, so you're constantly exposed to people's peak moments and greatest achievements. You compare your everyday reality to other people's highlight reels, which creates a systematically distorted perception of normal success. Second, the comparison pool keeps expanding as you achieve more. When you're starting your career, you might compare yourself to other entry-level professionals. But as you advance, you start comparing yourself to senior executives, industry leaders, and eventually to the most successful people in your field. This means that no amount of achievement will ever permanently solve the comparison problem. Third, comparison-based thinking trains your brain to derive satisfaction from relative rather than absolute progress. Instead of feeling good about your own growth and achievements, you feel good only when you're doing better than others. This makes your sense of success completely dependent on external factors you can't control. The psychological research on social comparison reveals several particularly destructive patterns that many people fall into without realizing it. Upward comparison is when you consistently compare yourself to people who are more successful than you. While this can sometimes provide motivation, chronic upward comparison is associated with decreased life satisfaction, increased anxiety, and reduced sense of personal accomplishment. Lateral comparison involves comparing yourself to peers at similar levels. This can be psychologically healthier, but it often leads to competitive dynamics that damage relationships and create stress around maintaining relative position rather than focusing on absolute growth. Downward comparison, comparing yourself to people who are less successful, can temporarily boost self-esteem, but it often creates complacency and can involve psychological defenses that prevent you from learning from others. The healthier psychological approach involves what researchers call temporal comparison, comparing your current self to your past self rather than comparing yourself to others. This framework allows you to appreciate genuine progress while maintaining motivation for continued growth. But breaking free from comparison-based thinking requires more than just deciding to stop comparing yourself to others. Your brain is wired to make these comparisons automatically, so you need practical strategies for redirecting this mental habit. One effective approach is developing what psychologists call comparison awareness. Instead of trying to eliminate comparative thoughts, you learn to notice when you're making comparisons and consciously evaluate whether those comparisons are useful or destructive. Another strategy involves comparison reframing. When you notice yourself comparing negatively to someone else, you consciously look for what you can learn from their success rather than how their achievement reflects on your adequacy. This transforms comparison from a source of psychological pain into a source of information and inspiration. Perhaps most importantly, research shows that building a strong sense of intrinsic motivation, pursuing goals because they align with your values and interests, rather than because they'll make you look good relative to others, provides natural protection against the psychological damage of social comparison. When your sense of success comes primarily from internal factors like personal growth, meaningful contribution, and alignment with your values, external comparisons lose much of their emotional power over you. The meaning problem. One of the most significant discoveries in positive psychology is that meaning matters more than achievement for long-term life satisfaction. Yet most people structure their pursuit of success around goals that provide achievement without meaning, which explains why so many successful people feel empty despite their accomplishments. Psychologist Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor who studied human motivation under extreme conditions, identified three primary sources of meaning: creative values, what you give to the world; experiential values, what you take from the world; and attitudinal values, the stance you take toward unavoidable suffering. Most conventional approaches to success focus almost exclusively on the first category, what you create or achieve. But research consistently shows that people who derive meaning from all three sources report higher life satisfaction, greater resilience during difficult periods, and more sustainable motivation over time. This creates what psychologists call the meaning gap in modern success culture. People work incredibly hard to achieve goals that provide minimal meaning in their lives, then wonder why success feels hollow. Consider the difference between two software engineers with similar salaries and job titles. The first sees programming as a way to solve interesting technical problems and create tools that help people. The second sees programming primarily as a path to high income and social status. Both might be equally successful by external measures, but research predicts that the first will report higher job satisfaction, better work-life integration, and more resilience during challenging periods. The difference isn't in what they achieve, but in how they understand the meaning of what they're doing. This principle extends beyond career success to every area of life. The same achievement can be deeply meaningful or psychologically empty, depending on how it connects to your broader sense of purpose and values. But meaning isn't just about having the right attitude toward your work. Research in existential psychology reveals that meaning emerges from specific psychological conditions that many people never consciously create. The first condition is coherence, the sense that your life has narrative structure and that your actions fit together into a comprehensible story. When your goals, values, and daily activities align, you experience coherence. When they conflict, you experience psychological fragmentation, even if you're achieving external success. The second condition is purpose, the sense that you're working towards something larger than immediate self-interest. This doesn't necessarily mean changing the world or having a grand mission. It can be as simple as contributing to your family's well-being, helping your team succeed, or developing your own capabilities. What matters is that your efforts feel connected to something beyond just personal benefit. The third condition is significance, the sense that your existence matters and that your efforts have lasting value. This often involves connecting your work to timeless human values like truth, beauty, justice, love, or growth. When people pursue success without attending to these three conditions, they often achieve their goals, but find the achievements psychologically unsatisfying. They have the external markers of success, but lack the internal experience of meaning. The good news is that meaning can be cultivated intentionally. You don't have to wait for meaningful opportunities to appear. You can learn to find and create meaning within whatever circumstances you're working with. One effective approach is what researchers call job crafting, consciously reshaping how you think about and approach your existing responsibilities to align them better with your values and strengths. Studies show that people who practice job crafting report higher job satisfaction and better performance, even when their objective job conditions remain the same. Another approach involves developing what Viktor Frankl called self-transcendence, the ability to connect your efforts to something larger than your immediate self-interest. This might involve mentoring others, contributing to causes you care about, or simply maintaining awareness of how your work affects people around you. But perhaps the most important insight from meaning research is that significance often emerges from the process of growth itself. When you're genuinely developing your capabilities, learning new skills, and becoming more effective at things you care about, the process itself can provide deep meaning, even when external achievements are modest. This suggests that the most psychologically sustainable approach to success involves structuring your goals and activities to maximize opportunities for meaningful growth rather than just focusing on specific outcomes. The perfectionism paradox. One of the most common psychological patterns among high achievers is perfectionism, and it creates a particularly complex relationship with success. While perfectionist tendencies can drive exceptional performance, they also often prevent people from enjoying their achievements and can lead to psychological burnout, even when external goals are met. Psychological research distinguishes between two types of perfectionism, with very different effects on well-being and performance. Adaptive perfectionism involves setting high standards for yourself while maintaining flexibility about how those standards are met. Adaptive perfectionists strive for excellence, but can appreciate good enough when circumstances require it. They view mistakes as information rather than failures, and they derive satisfaction from the process of improvement as well as from achieving specific outcomes. Maladaptive perfectionism involves rigid standards that must be met exactly, combined with harsh self-criticism when those standards aren't achieved. Maladaptive perfectionists often struggle to enjoy their successes because they're focused on the aspects that could have been better. They frequently experience anxiety about performance and may procrastinate on important tasks because they're afraid of producing imperfect results. The psychological research on perfectionism reveals several counterintuitive findings that challenge common assumptions about high achievement. First, maladaptive perfectionism often reduces performance rather than improving it. The anxiety and self-criticism associated with rigid perfectionist standards can interfere with flow states, creative thinking, and the kind of relaxed confidence that enables peak performance. Second, perfectionist standards often become moving targets. As you achieve higher levels of performance, perfectionist thinking adjusts the standards upward so that you never experience lasting satisfaction with your capabilities. This creates a psychological treadmill where increasing competence doesn't translate into increased confidence or satisfaction. Third, perfectionism can create what psychologists call procrastination paradox. Perfectionists often delay starting important projects because they're afraid they won't be able to execute them perfectly. This leads to rushed work at the end that actually increases the likelihood of imperfect results, the exact outcome they were trying to avoid. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for anyone pursuing ambitious goals, because perfectionist thinking is often reinforced by achievement culture. Many successful people credit their perfectionist standards for their achievements. not realizing that their success might have come despite, rather than because of those standards. Research suggests that the most psychologically healthy approach to high standards involves what researchers call optimization thinking. The understanding that the goal is to make things as good as they reasonably can, be given time, resource, and context constraints, rather than to make them theoretically perfect. This distinction might seem subtle, but it has profound psychological implications. Optimization thinking allows you to strive for excellence while maintaining perspective about what's actually achievable and worthwhile in any given situation. It also enables what psychologists call satisficing, the ability to recognize when something is good enough and to move forward rather than spending disproportionate time and energy pursuing marginal improvements. But developing optimization thinking requires more than just deciding to be less perfectionist. Perfectionist patterns are often deeply ingrained and connected to core beliefs about self-worth, competence, and how value is created in the world. Many perfectionists unconsciously believe that their worth as people is directly tied to the quality of their performance. This creates enormous psychological pressure because every task becomes a test of personal adequacy rather than simply an opportunity to create value or solve problems. Changing this pattern requires developing what psychologists call unconditional self-regard, the ability to maintain a stable sense of self-worth that's independent of performance outcomes. This doesn't mean becoming complacent or abandoning high standards. It means recognizing that your value as a person isn't determined by how well you execute any specific task. Another important aspect of addressing perfectionist patterns involves learning to appreciate the psychological benefits of completion over perfection. Research shows that finishing projects and moving forward to new challenges often provides more satisfaction and learning than spending excessive time trying to perfect individual pieces of work. This principle is particularly important for creative and intellectual work, where perfectionist thinking can prevent you from producing enough volume to develop expertise. In most fields, creating many good pieces of work is more valuable than creating a few perfect pieces. The social psychology of success. Success doesn't happen in isolation, and the social dynamics surrounding achievement can significantly impact how satisfying success feels psychologically. Understanding these social factors is crucial because many people unconsciously structure their pursuit of success in ways that damage their relationships and ultimately reduce their life satisfaction. One of the most important social psychological findings about success is that achievements feel more meaningful when they're shared with people who matter to you. This isn't just about having people to celebrate with. It's about the fundamental human need for connection and recognition. Evolutionary psychology suggests that individual achievement was always embedded in group contexts for our ancestors. Personal success that contributed to group survival was rewarded by the community, while success that came at the expense of group welfare was often punished. Your brain is still wired to expect that meaningful achievements will strengthen your social bonds rather than weaken them. This creates psychological problems when success requires isolating behaviors. Many modern paths to achievement, working extremely long hours, traveling constantly, prioritizing professional networking over personal relationships, can damage the social connections that would make success feel meaningful once you achieve it. Research consistently shows that people who maintain strong relationships during their pursuit of success report higher satisfaction with their achievements than those who sacrifice relationships for advancement. But this isn't just correlation. The relationships themselves seem to enhance the psychological value of accomplishments. This happens through several mechanisms. First, people who care about you provide perspective that helps you appreciate your achievements instead of immediately moving on to the next goal. They remind you of how far you've come and help you process the meaning of what you've accomplished. Second, close relationships provide what psychologists call capitalization opportunities, chances to share positive experiences in ways that amplify their emotional impact. When you achieve something meaningful and have people who genuinely care about your success, the act of sharing the experience can actually increase your own satisfaction with the achievement. Third, strong relationships provide emotional stability that allows you to take risks and pursue challenging goals without fear of being completely alone if things don't work out. This security can paradoxically make you more willing to pursue meaningful but uncertain opportunities. But the social psychology of success involves more than just maintaining relationships. It also involves managing the complex dynamics that arise when you achieve more success than people around you. Success guilt is a common psychological experience where achieving goals makes you feel bad because others in your life haven't achieved similar success. This can be particularly challenging when success comes from opportunities that weren't available to family members or close friends. Research shows that success guilt often leads to self-sabotage or to minimizing achievements in ways that prevent you from fully appreciating or building on them. Learning to handle success guilt in healthy ways, such as using your success to create opportunities for others, or maintaining gratitude while still appreciating your accomplishments, is crucial for psychological well-being. Another common social challenge is success envy from people in your life who struggle with your achievements. This can manifest as subtle criticism, attempts to minimize your accomplishments, or relationship distance when you succeed. While you can't control other people's reactions to your success, understanding these dynamics can help you maintain perspective and make conscious choices about how to navigate them. Sometimes this means being more selective about who you share achievements with. Sometimes it means finding new social connections with people who are genuinely supportive of growth and success. Perhaps most importantly, research suggests that the most psychologically sustainable approach to success involves what researchers call pro-social achievement, pursuing goals in ways that benefit others as well as yourself. This doesn't mean sacrificing your own interests or avoiding individual accomplishment. It means structuring your approach to success so that achieving your goals also contributes value to people and causes you care about. Pro-social achievement provides several psychological benefits. It connects your personal success to larger meaning and purpose. It builds rather than diminishes social connections. It creates sustainable motivation because your efforts serve multiple values simultaneously. And it provides natural protection against some of the psychological traps, like comparison and perfectionism, that can make success feel empty. Redefining success psychology. After examining all these psychological complexities, the question becomes, What does a psychologically healthy approach to success actually look like? How do you pursue meaningful goals without falling into the mental traps that make achievement feel hollow? The answer isn't to abandon ambition or to stop setting challenging goals. Research consistently shows that people who work toward meaningful objectives report higher life satisfaction than those who drift without direction. The key is developing a more sophisticated understanding of how success works psychologically and structuring your approach accordingly. The first principle of psychologically healthy success is process orientation. Instead of deriving your sense of progress and satisfaction primarily from outcomes you achieve, you learn to find meaning and motivation in the process of growth itself. This doesn't mean outcomes don't matter. It means that your psychological well-being isn't dependent on achieving specific external results. You can appreciate outcomes when they happen, while finding sustainable satisfaction in the daily practice of developing your capabilities and contributing value. Process orientation provides several psychological benefits. It makes your sense of success less dependent on factors outside your control. It creates more frequent opportunities for satisfaction because you can appreciate progress rather than waiting for major achievements. And it builds resilience because setbacks and failures become information about how to improve your process rather than judgments about your worth. The second principle is values alignment. This means structuring your goals around what you actually care about, rather than what you think you should care about, or what others expect you to pursue. Values alignment requires honest self-reflection about what kinds of activities energize you, what kinds of problems you find interesting, and what kinds of contributions feel meaningful to you. This is harder than it might sound because many people have learned to suppress their authentic interests in favor of socially approved goals. But research shows that pursuing goals aligned with your authentic values provides more sustainable motivation, better performance, and greater satisfaction with achievements than pursuing goals chosen for external reasons like status, approval, or financial reward. The third principle is integration thinking. Instead of compartmentalizing your life into separate areas, work, relationships, health, personal interests, you look for ways to structure your activities so they serve multiple values simultaneously. Integration thinking recognizes that you have limited time and energy, so the most efficient approach to a satisfying life involves finding ways for your efforts to contribute to several important areas at once. This might mean choosing work that aligns with your personal interests, building business relationships that become genuine friendships, or pursuing fitness activities that also provide social connection. The fourth principle is adaptive goal setting. This involves setting challenging objectives while maintaining psychological flexibility about how those objectives evolve based on new information and changing circumstances. Adaptive goal setting recognizes that the person you become while pursuing a goal might have different priorities than the person who originally set the goal. It allows for course corrections without feeling like you're failing or giving up on what matters to you. This approach prevents you from becoming psychologically trapped by goals that no longer serve your development or well-being. It also reduces the identity crisis that can happen when you achieve major objectives, because your sense of self isn't completely built around any single pursuit. The fifth principle is contribution focus. This means structuring your definition of success around the value you create for others rather than just the benefits you receive for yourself. Contribution focus doesn't require sacrificing your personal interests or needs. It means looking for ways to pursue your goals that also benefit people and causes you care about. This creates what psychologists call aligned motivation. You're more likely to sustain effort over time when your personal success contributes to something larger than yourself. Research shows that people who focus on contribution report higher levels of meaning, stronger social connections, and more resilience during difficult periods than those who focus primarily on personal gain. The future of success. Psychology. Understanding the psychology of success becomes increasingly important as traditional markers of achievement become less reliable predictors of life satisfaction. In previous generations, following established paths, get good grades, find stable employment, buy a house, save for retirement, provided reasonable assurance of both financial security and social recognition. But economic uncertainty, technological change, and evolving social values mean that many people now need to create their own definitions of success rather than following predetermined scripts. This freedom creates opportunities for more personalized and meaningful approaches to achievement, but it also requires better psychological understanding of what actually contributes to long-term well-being. Research in positive psychology suggests several trends that will likely become increasingly important for psychologically healthy success. First, the ability to find meaning and satisfaction in volatile and uncertain environments will become a crucial psychological skill. Traditional career paths that provided predictable progression and clear markers of advancement are becoming less common. This means developing internal sources of motivation and satisfaction rather than depending on external validation and recognition. Second, the integration of technology into most areas of work and life will require new approaches to attention, focus, and psychological boundaries. The same technologies that enable remarkable productivity and global connection can also create psychological fragmentation and comparison traps that make success feel empty. Third, increasing longevity means that many people will have multiple career phases and will need to reinvent their approach to success several times throughout their lives. This requires psychological flexibility and the ability to maintain identity continuity through major transitions. Fourth, global connectivity and information abundance create both opportunities and psychological challenges around comparison, competition, and information overwhelm. Learning to focus on personally meaningful goals while staying informed about broader opportunities and trends becomes an increasingly complex psychological skill. Understanding these trends can help you structure your current approach to success in ways that will remain psychologically sustainable as circumstances continue to change. Perhaps most importantly, the future of success psychology involves moving beyond individualistic achievement toward what researchers call interdependent success, approaches to achievement that strengthen rather than strain your relationships and communities. This doesn't mean abandoning personal ambition, but it does mean recognizing that the most psychologically sustainable forms of success create value for others as well as for yourself. In an increasingly connected world, your long-term well-being is more dependent on the health of your relationships and communities than on your individual achievements. This interdependent approach to success also provides natural protection against many of the psychological traps we've discussed. When your success contributes to others' well-being, achievement feels more meaningful. When you're part of a community that supports everyone's growth, comparison becomes less psychologically damaging. When your goals serve values larger than personal gain, setbacks feel less like personal failures. Living the psychology of success. The ultimate question isn't what success means in abstract psychological terms, but how you apply these insights to structure a life that feels both challenging and satisfying. How do you pursue meaningful goals without falling into the mental traps that make achievement feel empty? The answer is different for everyone because it depends on your unique values, circumstances, and aspirations. But certain psychological principles can guide you toward approaches that are more likely to provide sustainable satisfaction. Start by examining your current goals and honestly evaluating whether they align with what you actually care about or whether they're based on external expectations and social programming. This isn't about abandoning ambitious objectives, but about ensuring that your efforts are directed toward things that will genuinely matter to you if you achieve them. Develop the habit of appreciating process and progress, rather than waiting for major outcomes to feel successful. This might mean celebrating small improvements, acknowledging effort regardless of results, and finding satisfaction in the development of your capabilities rather than just in external recognition. Build goals and activities that serve multiple values simultaneously. Look for ways to pursue professional success that also strengthen relationships, contribute to causes you care about, and support your personal growth. This integration creates efficiency and reduces the psychological fragmentation that can make success feel hollow. Cultivate relationships with people who genuinely support your growth and who you can celebrate with when good things happen. Shared joy amplifies achievement in ways that individual accomplishment cannot match. Practice what psychologists call temporal perspective, regularly connecting with your past self to appreciate how far you've come and envisioning your future self to maintain motivation for continued growth. This provides natural protection against both complacency and the hedonic treadmill. Most importantly, maintain awareness that success is a psychological experience, not just a set of external circumstances. The same achievements can feel completely different depending on how you frame them, what meaning you derive from them, and how they fit into your broader sense of purpose and connection. This means that learning to experience success satisfyingly is a skill you can develop, just like learning to perform well in your chosen field. It requires attention, practice, and conscious intention, but it's available to anyone willing to approach their achievements with psychological sophistication. The psychology of success isn't about lowering your standards or accepting mediocrity. It's about understanding how your mind works so you can pursue ambitious goals in ways that actually enhance your well-being rather than undermining it. When you align your approach to achievement with psychological reality instead of cultural mythology, you discover that it's possible to be both highly successful and genuinely satisfied. You can pursue excellence without perfectionism, strive for achievement without losing relationships, and build a remarkable life without sacrificing your mental health in the process. This is the real psychology of success, Not the promise that achievement will automatically make you happy, but the understanding that you can learn to pursue meaningful goals in ways that create genuine satisfaction regardless of the specific outcomes you achieve. The choice is yours. You can continue chasing external markers of success while hoping they'll eventually provide the psychological satisfaction you're seeking. Or you can learn to structure your approach to achievement around the psychological principles that actually create lasting well-being. Either way, you'll likely achieve external success if you work hard and make smart decisions. But only one approach will leave you feeling genuinely successful when you look back on what you've built with your life.